Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another one of CPDSO's weekly webinars. Thank you all for joining us today. Today, we are going to be looking at the power of authenticity in creating the freedom to sell. So I know there's a lot of people that want to sell, but find it difficult. So that was the reason why we put together this training today. Today it is going to be a open session. So we do have both members and prospects on the call. It's the 3rd of September, and today I have with me Terry from the Reluctant Salesman. So just want to go through some quick housekeeping. Again, a big welcome to everybody, whether you're coming from the UK or abroad. Welcome whether you stayed up or it's midday where you are. Just a quick one, guys. I do love seeing your faces, but it is going to be an open session and we are going to be using the footage afterwards. So for GDPR purposes, I'm just going to ask you all to turn off your cameras for me. It would be much appreciated if you could just turn off those cameras. Thanks so much, Helen, Jane, thank you. Thank you guys for that. So yeah, please, if we could just keep those cameras off. That's the main part. Welcome everyone again who's joining us. People still coming in the room. Welcome everyone who's just come in the room as well. Thank you for joining us today. So just 3 things that I want to go over very quickly. In regards to the chat rules, the chat is going to be closed, so everything's going to be coming through to myself. If there is any complaints, please do put a C in front of the comment that you're making, that you're sending to me. Just put a C in front of that, and then I will be picking those up. I doubt there's going to be any complaints, but on the off chance, if there is something that you want to voice, please do put a C in front of that and then just send it straight to myself. Hi there, Siobhan. This is a closed session, open session. So can we please get the cameras off for this one, please? But nice seeing you. Next, no self-promoting. Like I said, the chat will be closed, but we may open it just to do a quick kind of a quick interaction piece. But in those instances, please, no self-promotion. Otherwise, you will be released back into the wild. Lastly, please do share your support and questions. There is going to be a Q&A at the end of the session with myself and Terry. Please do get any questions in regarding sales. I'm sure Terry, with over, I don't know, the experience is extensive. It's a lifetime. So please do get any questions in. And you can send those questions in during the presentation as well. Just put a Q in front of that. So if you just put a Q in front of the questions, so I can easily pick them out of the chat when they come through to me, and I will be able to pose them at the end of the presentation. Right, so next I'm just going to run a few quick polls. So the first one is just to get an understanding of the balance of people that we have on the webinar today. So I just want to know if you are a member or a non-member, and also how many webinars have you attended so far. So we've been running these webinars for a while now, since the beginning of the lockdown actually. So just want to get an understanding of how regular some of you guys are. And whether you're a member, not yet a member, but interested in joining, that's my favorite option, or my second favorite option. Not a member, just here to get some information on the topic, or I have been a member for more than 2 years. Thank you guys. I'm going to give you another 5 seconds on that one. 3, 2, and 1. Thank you for participating in that poll. Next, I just want to do a quick one about the topic. So we run weekly webinars, as many of you already know, and I just want to have an idea about the topics that you're interested in coming sessions. So you can see the options on your screen now. So get the mindset to plan for big results. How uncertain times can be traumatizing and what can we do about it? Facilitating and making an impact virtually in hybrid teams, LinkedIn Sales Navigator walkthrough. If you can just pick one of those options for me, be much appreciated. It helps us really create content, live content webinars that you all will find useful and practical in your journey. So please do just answer that one for me quickly. I'll give you another 3 seconds on that one. 3, 2, and 1. You'll be happy to know that get the mindset to plan for big results. Well, 39% of you will be happy to know that that one won. I'll share the results with you just now, so you can see that there on your screens. Thank you guys for that. Okay, moving forward, we just have a quick update about the face-to-face guidelines for our members. So they will be coming out to our members next week. So if there is anyone or the members that are online on this call, on this webinar, just to let you know that the guidelines for reopening face-to-face training are coming out next week. And if you're interested in learning more about that and you're not a member, please do just direct message me in the chat and ask me to contact you when this webinar is done. Right, let's get into the meat of things. So today we are going to be running a 15-minute webinar with a Q&A at the end of the session. So Terry's going to be taking us through the presentation, and then we're going to have a Q&A. So like I said, please do send those questions through during the presentation by Terry. Just put a Q in front of that question so I can easily identify that in the chat. Recording and slides will be available early next week. So you will get those next week so you can review this information next week. And it will be going up on our YouTube channel as all of our open sessions do. So please do, when you get the link, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel because all of our open sessions go up live on there. So you'll be able to stay abreast of everything that we're doing. Okay, whoops, jumping ahead of myself there. Right, today we have Terry Mullins of the Reluctant Salesman. So just a quick abridged overview, 15 years in sales teams, absolutely killing it. And then 4 years from 2002 to 2006 as a trainer. And from 2006 up until now, he's founded and established the Reluctant Salesman and delivers training all over the place, and he gets great results and feedback from all of his clients. So yeah, without you hope so. That's what
I hope I do.
That's what you said before.
Well, I mean, today might be the exception, Daniel. This might be the one.
Okay, I doubt that. I doubt that highly. So please do have your pens and paper ready to date down all of the notes that you need. And please do ask specific questions. Pick Terry's brain. Don't be scared to. We are going to have that Q&A session at the end. So without further ado, Terry, please do share your screen with us.
Okay. Hopefully you can all see that.
Perfect. Looks good.
Okay, so thanks very much for taking part. It's really nice that so many of you are interested in this. It's not massively surprising to me because everybody wants to be able to do this stuff, but most of us don't want to have to do it. And that's the reason I kind of founded the company. I'll just tell you quickly how I got into this because like most people, I mean, I don't think anybody leaves school with the intention of wanting to be a salesperson. I don't think that's, on anybody's agenda. And most people get into sales by accident or, they find themselves doing it. And that's increasingly the case now as well, because you've got so many people starting businesses and it's really nice to go on training courses about how to start your business, but there's very seldom any sales component. It's usually a sales and marketing component, which is usually about branding and marketing. There's not much said about sales. So people have got into it that way, but also just because the way that jobs have worked out now, you know, we've got people selling products and services that nobody else can understand. So those people now have to sell them. They have to actually be the people. They're the only ones that understand them. So they're the ones that kind of do that stuff. So you've got that going on. And across the board, you find more and more people need to do this, but don't really want to. And they don't want to do it for a number of reasons, principally because they don't like the idea of being a salesperson. So anyway, how I got into it, I was a carpenter. I was just, I had my own little business, and I was selling stuff, but I wasn't aware I was selling it. It was more just taking orders, really. And I was working on contracts. I was installing luxury kitchens for this guy in Knightsbridge in London, and it was all very nice. And I was earning a good living. And then he asked me if I go on a sales call, and I immediately said no, because I don't want to be a salesperson. But he basically bribed me, and in the end, I went along. And I had a really interesting conversation with these people, which led me to learn a couple of things. But more importantly, somehow they went ahead and bought this luxury kitchen that I was selling. Obviously, I understood how the kitchens went together, and I understood how they went, but I didn't understand how to sell anything. So I just turned up and I had a chat with them. The first thing I said to them when I walked in was, I looked at the kitchen they were taking out, and it was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was at least as beautiful as anything that I was installing at that time. And I thought, why are they selling? Why do they want a new kitchen? Why are they replacing this? And so I actually asked them that question. I said, this is beautiful. Why would you want to change this? I don't think many salespeople have done that, because that's not what salespeople do. But I did that because I was naive, and it seemed like an obvious question to me. So I asked them the question, and then they explained to me exactly why they needed to change their kitchen. So I kind of learned from that a little bit. I learned that you can't persuade people not to buy something if they want to buy it. And also that it doesn't matter really what you say, as long as what you say is authentic. Anyway, so I started selling, and I very quickly became very successful at it. Now, when you hear that, you're going to think, oh, it's one of those born salespeople. You know, you hear about these people, these guys, women that can just do it. It's just they're born to do it. Firstly, that doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a born salesperson. There are people who are better at it than others, but that doesn't mean that they're born to it. And funnily enough, I really wasn't being a salesperson. As I'll explain later, that's really the whole crux of what I do. So the whole idea of a born salesperson is just not true. It's the first myth that we need to explode. What you've got is people who are better at it than others, because you have everything. You know, you could be a great doctor, but maybe people would say, oh, he's a born doctor. That might be the case, but you don't get born plumbers or born accountants. You know, we don't think of it in those terms. You just get people that are good at it and people that are maybe okay at it. So measuring ourselves by the people who can just do this stuff without even thinking about it is unrealistic. And what we should be measuring ourselves against is just doing a good job. So one of the first things I'd like you to consider is based on this Steve Jobs quote here. We've got to stop being trapped by the dogma of other people's thinking. Most of the stuff you think that you know about sales, and I thought I knew about sales, simply isn't true. It doesn't stand up to any sort of criticism or critique or, examination. It really doesn't. There's hardly anything that's true. It's an uncomfortable thing to be doing, and as a consequence, it's spawned a whole lot of mythology, and none of it is true. So that's the first thing. So the dogma of other people's thinking is just to understand that we really don't get it at all. We're just given it, and we don't question it. So let's kind of explore that a little bit. What is selling all about? Actually, selling's always been about creating a distinction. People who sell stuff spend their time trying to convince other people that what they have is different from what someone else is selling. That's generally what happens. We create a distinction. we distinguish our product or service from other people. And we do that in a number of ways. It might be by price or quality or features or something about it. But when you're talking about a product or service, you're generally trying to distinguish it from others. You know, you get that all the time. But what I'm saying here, and what I believe to be true, is the simplest way to create a distinction is actually to stop selling. So you know what happened when I was talking to those people I just mentioned, when I said to them, you know, why do you want to buy a kitchen? You don't need a kitchen. I immediately stopped selling. I didn't know I was doing it. It was kind of an unconscious competence thing. I just did it. But the minute I stopped selling, everything shifted. And the interesting part about that was what I said was true. I'd said something that was true, but it was to my disadvantage. And the way it works is, as I learned later, and it took me years to figure this out. I mean, I was working for other companies and I couldn't understand why it was that I was being as successful as I was. I had that whole kind of, you know, that thing where you just don't believe that you should be there. I kept thinking I'm a carpenter pretending to be a salesperson. You know, that's how it was for me. But then I went on to sell other things that were nothing to do with that. And I went on to sell business programs and, you know, high-end stuff and property, all sorts of stuff. And it was the same everywhere I went. So I had to kind of think that, well, you know, what is it I'm doing? And do you know what I did? I actually I went on some sales training courses. The idea for me was, I thought, well, look, I'm earning a really good living and I don't know what I'm doing. So if I go on a couple of sales training courses, then I'm going to smash this. And then what I quickly realized is I wasn't doing what other people were doing. I was just doing whatever it was I was doing, but it wasn't what they would do. I didn't have all these techniques and closes and I hadn't got a script. I didn't even have a presentation. I just kind of went along and had meetings and it kind of went well. The meetings had intention, but I didn't follow all of that. Of course, what I did after I'd had the training was I thought, well, I better try some of this stuff out. And the minute I tried to do that, I couldn't give things away. I mean, I literally could not get rid of, I was terrible. I had to really abandon all that and go back to what I knew. So I'd stopped selling. And the minute you say something that's to your disadvantage that's true, then everything you say after that must be true also. And that's what I found. People just started to believe what I was saying because I actually was just telling the truth because I never really thought it was that big a deal. So that's the simplest way to create a distinction is to stop selling. Another thing you need to understand is that people love to buy. Now, when I say they love to buy, what I mean is that once they either have a want or a need, if they want something or they need something, they just want to get it done. You know, when you go out to buy something, you want to find the thing that you want to buy. And that's the same with buyers, you know, in companies. If a company's buying your service, they really need to get it done. The clue's in the name, you know, they're buyers, they want to get it done. So people love to buy, but they really hate to be sold to, you know? So they'll sleep on the pavement all night to buy an iPhone that they could buy the next day for the same price. But the minute someone tries to sell them something, they withdraw. You know, when you're in a store and someone comes up to you and does that terrible thing where they offer to help, you know, can I help you? And you say, oh, yeah, John, I'm just fine. I'm just looking. Thank you. And then they go away and that's okay. But you feel a little bit, oh, okay. Didn't like that very much. And then maybe they'll come back again 10 minutes later. Can I get that in your size? You know, that question. They're so sneaky, aren't they? They do all that kind of thing. And then maybe they might come back again. Now, at some point, you'll have had enough. Now, all they're doing is trying to help you, but you're being sold to and you don't like it. And you will leave the thing hanging on the rack that you would have bought rather than be sold to. So we love buying, but we hate being sold to. So that's kind of important that you get that. Now, in my training, what I do, I have these things I call the first principles. This is the kind of basis around how the whole thing works. How I had to kind of formulate what it was I was doing, and it took me a long while, and I had to create workbooks and stuff like that. So I openly confess to you now that everything you're about to see, I made up, right? Okay, I just made it up. But bizarrely enough, over 20 years of kind of doing this, it seems to work. So what I'd like to look at, first of all, is these first principles. And the first of the first principle, the number one, is that selling is important to your success. And probably you agree with that. That's the one that pretty well everybody agrees with. However, we'll see in a moment, perhaps you don't always act upon it. The second one is selling simple, and majority of you won't agree with that. And that anyone can do it, you won't agree with that either. I'll only have time to really touch on these, and I won't have time really to look at the last one at all. But the other thing I'm saying, which is a big thing, is that success is not dependent on outside circumstances. And what I mean by that, bad as things are now, and God knows they're bad, that should not impact massively on proactive businesses. So that's the first time I've said that word. My idea on this stuff is that if you want to be a successful salesperson, you need to be proactive. Most of us are not. We're reactive, and I'm going to examine that as we go through as well. So one of the other things they say about this stuff is that it can't be taught. That you either can do it or you can't do it. That's another myth that needs exploding, because if people can be taught to do, play the piano or the violin or do brain surgery, I'm blooming sure they can be taught to sell a bit of stuff or a program or whatever you need to sell. One of the interesting things about people in our field, people who train and coach, a lot of the time it's not about the money. I mean, you need to earn a good living, but it's not always about the money. Most of us do what we do because we love doing what we do. I'm certainly still doing it because I just love doing it. But we have to understand that in order to be of service to our clients, we need to have a good business that works and not be having lots of problems in our own minds that we're dealing with when we're dealing with our clients. So it's important to be successful. It's important to be successful, if only as a model for other people, so they can see what we're doing. So let's look at this. Selling's important to your success, which is the first place to start. So what I put here is I put a little quote from a guy called Richard Templer, who wrote a series of books called The Rules of, and this was The Rules of Wealth. And what he's pointing out here is that it's important, it's the bedrock upon which every fortune is built, whatever you do. Okay. What's interesting here to me, like he's saying you need to be able to involve in selling skills, selling things, and selling ideas. You can't make money without selling. Some may question that, I don't know, but yeah, selling ideas. The point about this is that the idea of selling ideas, all of this stuff you're already doing, irrespective of whether you're in business or not, you're already doing all of this. Every time you've had a bit of success in your life, perhaps a promotion, or or someone's believed someone's taken on your point of view, or you've been listened to in the office. Every time you've been, when you've actually, got a new job and you've gone for an interview, which is not a comfortable meeting, but you did that. If you did that at some point in your career, that was a sales conversation. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that selling, as I put here, the ability to sell is not a business skill. It's a life skill, and you've already got it. You do it all the time. You're always, getting your own way, for want of a better word, in conversations and in meetings, and things go your way because, not necessarily because you're persuasive, just because you get your ideas across. So it's a life skill. It's not a business skill. It's interesting, but Damien, I think they want you to turn your camera off, if you would. It's okay. I don't mind, but what was I saying? Yeah, it's a life skill. It's not a business skill. It's something that you're fundamentally good at. And the only time we seem to struggle with it is when we know we're selling, when we're doing it overtly, when we're actually maybe talking to a new client or being interviewed by someone, then we know we're doing it, and then it becomes uncomfortable. It's a bit like, like you could be at a party and be quite happy and laughing and joking and it's all good. And then someone points a camera at you, and then you immediately become self-aware. And it's that kind of self-awareness and that significance that becomes the problem for us. So, life skill, not a business skill. One of the other things that stops us getting on with it, if you're working for yourself, you've got an awful lot of other things to do. And then consequently, because this is something that you probably don't want to do that much, you maybe leave it a little bit or do it in a slightly lazy fashion. I'll explain that in a second. So this is a roles and responsibilities wheel. If you run a business or if you work for someone, you have a role and responsibility. If you run a business, probably all of this is your responsibility one way or another. But a lot of it will probably be your roles as well. It'll be things, the roles are the things you actually do. The responsibilities are the things that you are responsible for making sure get done. So starting at the top there, you've got fulfillment. Fulfillment is doing the job. It's actually doing the work. Whatever it is that your coaching or training does, that's it. It's fulfillment. Excuse me. And that eats up the biggest part of the pie. If this was proportionate, that would be the majority of the pie, but it's not all of it. Then you've got leadership, and you may say, well, it's only me. It's only I'm on my own. It's my business. Or I'm not in a leadership role. I'm working, but you really are, because you're responsible for driving your business forward. You're responsible for making things happen and having a vision for the future. And then what leadership does is it gives management jobs to do, and management has to deal with small things and big things. So that maybe that's part of your time goes on that. And then you have finance, and with finance, certainly for most people, that's a responsibility. I mean, we need to get it done, but then we get the accountants and the bookkeepers in because it just eats up too much time. And that's the issue, is the time. Now, marketing. Marketing's an interesting one. And there's a lot of confusion between sales and marketing. We always say sales and marketing. I mean, straight away, they're round the wrong way, aren't they? Really? You should do the marketing first, shouldn't you? But anyway, so sales and marketing. Marketing. What's marketing? If I was to ask you, what's the difference? What's the difference between sales and marketing? And I do ask that. I ask that to participants in my programs. You know, what's the difference? They struggle to figure it out. You know, what is the difference? I'm not quite sure. It's not that easy to define. So let me make it easy for you, because I've come up with something. It may have some holes in it, but I think it kind of works. Marketing is a monologue. It's us talking. It's sending out emails. It's advertising campaigns. It's the livery on our vehicles. It's us talking. There's no conversation. Selling is always a dialogue. So the idea of selling is that you need to be speaking to people. Now, interestingly enough, lead generation can be both marketing and sales, because it can be a proactive thing, which is where you're actually actively talking to people, or it can be a reactive thing where you're marketing. And when you're reactive, and there's not, by the way, don't get me wrong, I think marketing's wonderful. It's really important. And any of you who are in marketing, you know, I don't want to offend anybody. I just want it to be clear, it's not selling. Selling requires a conversation. So you have lead generation, which is, you know, can be one or the other. Lead conversion is always a conversation. And conversion suggests this whole idea about closes and all that. Can I tell you something? In my entire sales career, I have never closed anybody. I've never needed to. What I've always done is had a structure in place to make sure I was there when the sale kind of naturally closed itself, which does happen. It's the point. You know, any sale of any value takes 3 or 4 or 5 interactions, but most of us don't get anywhere near to that. So the important thing about this is to think about how much selling we actually do. So let me help you out a little bit. If selling is talking to someone who, you know, a new potential client, with the intention of selling them some of your goods or services, or in our case, I guess our services, right? To sell our services. You're talking to someone new. Or it's talking to an existing client with the intention of selling them more of your goods or services. Okay? Everything else is something else. Now, if you think about that, and bear in mind we all agreed selling's important, in the last couple of weeks, how much of your time is spent in conversations like that? Not in conversations with clients, you've had lots of those, probably, hopefully. It's in conversations where you are proactively aware that the subject of the conversation from your point of view is going to be to sell some goods or services. When I ask people about this in my courses, often it's zero, absolutely none, which is a bit upsetting when you think that selling's important. If selling's important, why aren't we doing it? So that's one reason we aren't doing it. But let's look at the second one. Not another reason why I'm doing it, the second principle. Because I said selling's simple, and this one you probably wouldn't agree with. But let me tell you it is. So it's simple because it's always the same. It's a 5-step process, and it can't be any more. Now, you may have to repeat some of the steps, but the good news is some of them you don't have to do at all, or you only have to do once. So let's just run through these 5 steps. So the first one is to choose something you want to sell. What's important about that is that you probably have quite a lot of stuff that you could sell. You have a wide range, but we're selling services, and services are, there was a great book, I'm trying to think of the name who wrote it, but it was called Selling the Invisible. And it was about people who sell services. We can't show anyone a kind of a bucket of our service, a box of it. We just can't. We're selling a promise, really. Every time we sell something, we're selling a promise. So if we're selling the invisible, if we're, you know, choosing something we want to sell, one thing we can do is we can actually reduce it down. I believe that sales is a reductive process. I'm not trying to sell everything to everybody. I'm trying to sell one specific thing to one specific group, which I'll get to in a second. So how can we put our service in a box? How can we make it simple to buy? How do we do that? So the first thing we can do is we can give whatever it is a name. I've just launched a new website literally today. By all means, go and look at it. It'll be up at the end. Well, it's thereluctantsalesman.com. If you go and have a look at that at some point, you will see that there's products for sale on that, courses that I do. There's about 5 of them. They're not actually on there yet. They're there, but I haven't actually transferred them over yet. But the courses all have names. They all begin with the power of authenticity, but then they have specific differences depending on who it is I'm selling it to. And that's what the second point of the second step on the sales process is. You choose a perfect client. And what do I mean by a perfect client? Well, a perfect client is someone who wants what it is I've created, because I've created now a product. Remember, so if you imagine we put this service in a box, we've given it a name, and we've also given it a price. I quite like selling things with fixed prices because they're just easier to sell. If you're very vague about your pricing, I know sometimes you can't do that, but if you're very vague about your pricing, if you're in a shop or something, you really want to know how much a thing costs. And our clients are no different. They want to know too. So you put the thing in the box, you give it a name, and you give it a price. Then you model that thing exactly for a perfect client. And then proactive businesses speak to that client. Now, marketing tries to do this with targeted marketing, but no matter how you do marketing, if you're not picking the clients, if you're not choosing the clients, you're going to get people who think they're your client, but are not. So they'll come along and, you know, there'll be a bit of a waste of time because you'll want to do some business with them, but they're really not your client. Perhaps they don't have the right amount of money, or they're just in a sector that you're not working with. So what the first step then is to choose something you want to sell, which is a reductive thing, and then choose a client you want to sell it to, which is a reductive thing. Being sector specific is very powerful. So if you're selling something, a service, a particular type of training, and you have an expertise in an area, or if you've trained people in a certain area before, then you can claim to have that level of expertise. You can talk to them. So you choose a perfect client. Then what do you do? Well, you get in touch with them, which is another matter, but I'll perhaps get to that later. But then you suggest why they might want what you have. Most sales is about persuasion. As you'll see later, you don't need to persuade anyone to do anything. You just need to suggest why they might want what you have. The 4th step is you tell them how much it costs. And then the 5th step is you ask if they want some. Now, I've said that's simple, but when I got to 4 and 5, you probably went, actually, that's not that simple. I don't like talking about the money, and I certainly don't want to ask them if they want something, you know. The point is that the acts itself, each of those things is simple. Choosing a product, choosing a client, suggesting why they want what you have. By the way, we love that bit because we get to talk about ourselves, and we're the smartest person in the room. So we love step 3. Step 4, tell them how much it costs. We don't like that so much, but it's not difficult. It's simple. It's a speech act. It will cost £1,000. It will cost £5,000. That's it. And then the 5th, ask if they want some. I've never closed anyone. What I tend to say is, what do you think? Do you want to go ahead with that? How does that sound? Do you want to do that? Or should we leave it? You know, I mean, literally that. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to create that level of freedom in the conversation to make this work. So it's simple, but it's not easy. So the 5 steps are simple. There's nothing here you can't do. But why doesn't selling Seems simple. Why isn't it easy? A thing can be simple without it being easy. So if you've ever watched, there's a program called The World's Strongest Man. And I guess even if you've never seen it, you can guess what it's about. You've got huge guys and they're doing feats of strength. Now, one of those feats of strength may only be to walk 5 steps, but they're chained to a truck. They're dragging a truck along with them. And that really is how I kind of see the whole sales process. We've taken something simple and made it difficult because we're dragging lots of stuff with us. You know, weight of expectations, worry about getting it wrong, making ourselves look foolish. All these sort of things, we're taking that into the meeting with us. So what are we actually dealing with there? Let's take a look. If I can get that to go. Yeah. So I've been looking at this for years and I've been talking about it for decades, which is kind of scary, but anyway. And I've only come up with 3 things that actually are a concern around selling. The first is the salesperson stereotype. This is the big one, actually. This is the biggest of the 3, I think, in many respects. We don't want to be seen to be salespeople, but the interesting thing about the stereotype is absolutely rigid. And actually, if you think about it, I've got a South London accent and my name's Terry. So I kind of fit that rather well. I've got a kind of stereotypical view of people would think that, yeah, he's probably a salesman. What else could he be? But the point is the stereotype is really rigid. If I ask you to think of an adjective, one adjective that pops into your head when you hear the word, say, salesman or salesperson, it's not going to be good. Again, I ask my participants, and it's never good. It's always pushy, sleazy, manipulative, won't take no for an answer. That's more than one word, but anyway, that's what goes on. People really get that. And the interesting thing is, although I train people who see themselves as non-salespeople, increasingly over the years, I trained so many sales teams in companies because they don't want to be selling in the old way. And when I ask them the question, they say the same thing. But even when I'm talking to people who want to be salespeople, it's kind of nuts that this thing they want to be, but they've got such a low opinion of them. And where does it come from? If you think about it, you've been sold every day of your life, from cradle to grave, you're being sold. How many really bad experiences would you have had to make this viable? You remember that kind of dogma of other people's thinking? It really is that. You don't have that many bad expectations. Things aren't that bad. What you do get is a whole culture that shows salespeople as being like this. You know, the movies, the books, you know, Death of a Salesman, you know, Arthur Miller's famous play. That didn't end well, as you can imagine, Death of a Salesman. But the point is, you know, it's showing failure. The stereotype is interesting, actually. It's either pushy and manipulative and horrible, or it's burnt out failure, you know, can't quite do it anymore. It's really is that. So nobody wants to be that. So that's a big one, particularly perhaps if you're a professional person. If you're a professional person, you have a skill, you don't want to be seen to be a salesperson. Another one is money. Money is the last taboo, in my opinion. It's one of the very few things we have no freedom to talk about. You can talk. It used to be years ago, people would say, don't talk about religion or politics. And now we pretty well talk about that all the time. It's all over the news. Sex, it's everywhere. We talk about sex all the time. And actually, we're liberated in one sense that nowadays, if you kind of knew them quite well, and you wanted to ask them their sexual orientation, that really wouldn't be a problem nowadays, which is a good thing. But you still can't ask them how much they earn. You see, when it comes to money, we are very constrained. But you know, when you're selling stuff, step 4, you have to tell them the price. You have to talk about money, and we're not comfortable with that, so we don't, and we send it in. We send the price in, and then we sit there and wait, expecting them to get back to us, and of course they don't. So that's where one of the problems we've got. The third one is rejection. Now, when I used to do this some years ago, that used to say no, because it say like hearing no was the problem. But of course you never hear no. You know, you don't do. What you hear is, we'll think about it. We'll get back to you. That's really interesting. Thank you so much. And that's what they do. You do that. But we know it's no. We've heard it. You know, we have this, we've developed this sensitive hearing like bats or something, and we can now hear, we detect what's really going on here. And we've been rejected and we don't like it. So they're the three. Now, you may be able to think of something else, and I'd be really interested, if you can, we could talk about it later. I got a feeling if you do, it will be one of these in disguise. Okay, so these are the only three things. Now, what's interesting is that most sales training, for want of a better word, focuses not on this, which to me is the only problem. You know, the other stuff, it focuses on the other stuff. It focuses on the steps, and it makes really simple things complicated. These are really simple things made overcomplicated because we lack freedom in the conversation, because we don't want to look like salespeople, and we're worried about being asked the wrong question or not having the right answer. We're concerned about talking around money, and we hate the idea of someone rejecting us. So all of that is a bit of a problem. That's where it all comes from. But there's kind of more to it than that as well. We also have these expectations about what it is we should be doing. So look at this. I've made a little list of the things that we think that salespeople need to have. So let's start at the top. Product knowledge is always how we start these lists. And you've got that, so it's not a problem, but it's always on these lists. So I'm putting little indications here of what I think is the value of these in a sales conversation. So, excuse me, product knowledge is useful. Of course it is. Having said that, I have sold stuff I barely understood how it worked, but I knew what it did and I knew why it would be useful. So yeah, but product knowledge, you've got it anyway, so it's not an issue. Then we've got technique. So if you're a technique-based salesperson, you have to have, techniques. I don't believe that's required. I don't think you need that. But a lot of people do. The trouble is, if you try that, if you learn a few techniques, then you try and then get caught selling. If someone says to you, oh, you're being a bit, I'm not really interested just at the moment, that feels terrible. You've been caught selling. Oh, go home and have a shower quickly. You feel awful. So you won't do that again. So then you lean on your personality. You're really nice. Now, obviously, I've put it at 50-50 because you do need to be reasonable. You need to be nice. You don't want to be miserable. But making your personality what you're selling on, personality selling, personality-based selling, that's just kind of a bit sleazy to me. And the fact is that what happens is you're so nice and you've gone the extra mile and the extra 110%, and they just feel really comfortable to say, well, think about it and get back to you later. So it doesn't work either. And it makes you feel bad because afterwards you feel like a wimp. Why didn't I do a bit more? One of those real salespeople would have got that. USP, unique selling proposition. I haven't got time really to go into much detail, but trust me, you haven't got one. There's nothing unique about your business, nothing unique except you actually. And we try and cover up our uniqueness. The USP is you, the unique salesperson. You need to be a unique salesperson. That's how you do it. That's how you create that space. Then you have communication skills, often regarded as the gift of the gab. I mean, you want to be able to speak and have a conversation, but really all you need to is have freedom in the speech. You don't have to be perfect. The fourth, I have a thing in my program called the 4 keys. The fourth key is enrollment, and it's how we enroll people. People are not enrolled by perfection. They really are not. If you're too slick or too smooth, people don't like that. They don't warm to it. So, excuse me, communication skills are great if you've got them, if you're chatty, but I've actually worked with salespeople who are pretty well just, well, they were knuckle draggers, really. They could barely hold a conversation, but they were non-threatening and they got the job done. So like I said, they just got the job done. What about a positive attitude? You would think I would give you that, wouldn't you? You would think you've got to have a positive attitude to be in sales. Yeah, you know what? It's great if you've got it, and it's always good in any area. If you've got a positive attitude, it's fabulous. But you know what? There's days when I don't have it, but I've still got to do the work. And what's funny about that, I mean, I know most of us don't quite really enjoy selling. I mean, I do, because I've got used to it now, but I didn't when I started, but I enjoy it. But most people don't, and I understand that. But there's lots of things I do that I don't particularly enjoy, and I never have to have a positive attitude. I don't need to get psyched up to do a tax return. I don't like doing it, but I don't have to psych myself up. But there are salespeople driving around listening to MP3s in a car, telling them they're tigers. and they're going to rule the jungle and all this. This is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense. A positive attitude is great when you got it, but it's only because we've made it so significant. We need this to do what is actually a fairly mundane task. It's about engaging in conversations, and talking about our stuff, which, as I said, we love doing anyway. It shouldn't be that difficult. Psychological insights, what sort of personality type are they? I don't care, frankly, because you know what? If I've got to model are they analytical or amiable? If I've got to model myself on them, then it's just, I've got to become an actor or something. It's just crazy stuff. And they see all this coming. By the way, all of the technique stuff, all of this, all of the rapport building around good personality, our clients see it. They know what it is. They know what we're doing. And remember, they don't like being sold to. So thick skin, you need one of those because you're going to hear no. Okay, so what? We live in a scarcity mentality. We think that the only client we're talking to is the only client we're ever going to talk to. And that if we don't get this one, we're in trouble. And sometimes if the bills need paying, that might be the case. Most of the time it's not. You need to understand that providing you've got a process so that these conversations are not the end of the world. Selling isn't an event. It isn't a meeting, and it's not a big deal. It's serious. It's a process. That's what's required. And then we've got our old friend at the bottom, which is persistence. Persistence overcomes resistance is what every salesperson will tell you. The only trouble with that is that nobody wants to be around a persistent salesperson. Nobody. So yeah, persistence overcomes resistance, but I actually believe the opposite is true. I believe persistence creates resistance. I think that when you're being that forceful, that salesperson full on, that actually creates problems. Now, all of this stuff works. Just be clear about that. All of it works, but you have to be full on. So if you're using your personality, you have to go full on and be just lovely all the time. And if you're using a technique, you have to be full salesperson. You have to go with it. If you're not willing to do that, and I'm not, and most people are not, you're going to struggle. But none of this is required. None of it. Let's see what is required. What we need is some freedom. We need to create a little bit of freedom around the sales conversation. We need to be able to have, you don't form scripts when you're going to meet people in a group, in a party, or being introduced to a new person in a group. You don't have a script for that. You don't need it. You trust yourself in conversations. We don't trust ourselves in conversations. We don't have freedom, so we don't trust ourselves. What you need is freedom. You need the freedom to have meaningful, just normal conversations. And then you need a process. So the problem is that, for instance, that unless you've got a way of maintaining the conversation, as I said, most times it's not going to be done in one meeting. So then you need to see them again. And even if you've given them a proposal, they're going to say, we'll think about it and get back to you, which is perfectly reasonable. But you need a process for making that happen. And that's really what we should be focusing on. The most important part of a sales conversation isn't the beginning. I know they say you only get one chance at a first impression, which is true, but we all know we've met people we liked and then found out they weren't so great, and vice versa. We met people we didn't like and grew to love them, maybe. It's just the way it works. So we need a process for maintaining the relationship. That's really all we need. Sales is just a series of interactions. We need a way of keeping the ball bouncing. So that's one process we need. But there are numbers of small things, just small things we can do to make all of this easier. So freedom and process, and that leads to sales. And that's really what I've been doing for decades. And that's what my clients are now doing because I'm training them to do it. But it's not actually a learned skill. It's about adopting something I mentioned earlier, the 4 keys. And the 4 keys are just really, they're 4 simple sets of processes that you adopt, and they change who you are in the sales conversation. So that's how I do it. What's the next slide? Oh yeah. I'd just like to quickly show you this, and that'll be the end. I want to talk to you about how we view our clients as resistant. This is a traditional sales model. It's the traditional sales paradigm. This is how salespeople view clients, and traditionally. Everybody we meet, we have this idea that they're going to be resistant, that we need to persuade them. That's the intention of the conversation. Because if we don't, they're not going to buy from us. We need to kind of convince them that we are different from everybody else, or we have something that's different, or we have something that's useful to them. So we have to persuade them. But it begins with this idea that they're resistant. They don't, even though they're talking to us, they kind of rather not be there. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the feeling we get. Because if we didn't, why were we uncomfortable in sales conversations? If we believed that they actually wanted us to be there, why would we be uncomfortable? So move on. The goal is to make them buy. Now, what strategy do we have? You can imagine when I show this to professional salespeople, how upset they get. Bully, bribe, or sleaze, that's all we've got. You can bully them, pester them to death, bribe them, be the cheapest, keep giving them deals and all that, or sleaze them, just be really, really nice. And that's it. They're the tools in a traditional sales toolbox, and it gives you this stereotypical selling, which nobody likes. So it begins with a resistant customer. But that makes no sense. Have you ever gone into a shop in which you had no interest whatsoever? Have you ever invited someone to your home or place of business to give you a quote just for the fun of it? You know, let's get a double glazing guy in and get it and just see what they're like. I've heard they're terrible. Let's see what they're like. We'll have some, it might be a laugh, we can have a joke with that. No, nobody does that. You need to understand that if you're talking to someone, they want you to be there. Otherwise you wouldn't be there. And that's why you need a process that sets up any interaction. So if you are doing proactive selling, then you need a process that gets them to choose to talk to you or not, gives them the option not to talk to you, gives them the freedom as well. Then you have to change the model, because if you change the resistant customer, now one of the reasons we think they're resistant is because they seem it when we meet them sometimes. They're saying things like, I'm not going to place an order today. I've got a lot to think about, and this is just something we're looking at the moment. All of that stuff, which is absolutely fine, but that's just a smokescreen. If they're talking to you, they're really interested in buying from you. Otherwise, they wouldn't. Why would they give you their precious time? So we need to understand that if we're talking to someone, they're not resistant. So how about an enthusiastic customer? How about the idea that they're actually enthusiastic, that they want us to talk to them, that they're actually they've got the same goal as us. You know, our goal is to sell them something, and their goal is to buy something. Why? Because everybody loves to buy, but we all hate to be sold to. So if you've got the model of the enthusiastic customer, you don't need to persuade someone to do something they already want to do. On one of these previous talks, I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but he was saying that if someone's talking to you, he was a marketing chap, and he said, if someone's talking to you, they're already 65% along the line to buying the product or service. Right, so there's 65. You can only lose it, really. They're already ready to go. So if you've got someone who said that's agreed to a meeting with you, don't go in there thinking that they're going to be resistant. They're not. They're going to demonstrate resistance, but what they're resisting is you selling. They're not resisting, and you can get rid of that really quickly. Again, there's ways of doing that, I can promise you. So we don't need to persuade them. We only need to facilitate them. We need to make it easier for them to buy from us. And how do we do that? We create the space. Remember when I said to my client right at the beginning when I was telling you, I said to my client, I basically was saying, you don't need a kitchen. You don't have to buy it. I created space. And I'm always doing that. I'm always saying to people, this might not be for you. If someone says to me a thing's too expensive, which by the way is impossible because there's no such thing as too expensive, but I haven't got time to explain that, but it's absolutely true. So if someone says to me, it's too expensive, my response to that is, well, that's okay. It's not for everybody. And then maybe I'll carry on talking to them about it and explain it a bit more. But the minute you say to someone, it's not for everybody, you've created the freedom for them to say, okay, it's not for me. You've also created a bit of a challenge. I actually think those words have earned me more money in sales than anything else. It's not for everyone. Don't try and persuade someone to buy. They're already persuaded. They want to buy it. If they say it's too expensive, that just means there's no such thing as too expensive. It just means they can't afford it. It means you're probably talking to the wrong person. If you keep hearing it, you're talking to the wrong person. But you're going to hear it from time to time because people love to use that as a block. See if they can get a deal. The strategy then, what is that? That's a bit of an incredibly long work. And an ontological focus. In my programs, what we focus in is not on what we're doing. Do you know 70% of what you say in any conversation is forgotten in 3 hours? It doesn't matter what you say. It's who you're being. It's who you are in the meeting. It's the impression you leave with them. It's like seeing a good comic and really laughing at this person. And then the next day someone says, was he good? Yeah, it was great. You should go and see him. tell us a couple of the jokes. You won't remember the jokes, but you'll remember how great it was, and you'll recommend that person. And the outcome we're looking for? The outcome we're looking for in sales conversations shouldn't be sort of like some stereotypical sales view or anything like that. It should be ease. We should be looking to make the whole process easy for us and easy for them. And that's about me done, I think. So thank you. Thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry that I didn't have more time to go into more detail of a lot of this, but hopefully maybe some stuff will come up in the meeting. Let me just see if I can now get this to stop screen sharing. There we are. Are you there, sir?
Hey everybody, I'm back. Thank you so much for that, Terry. Hey guys, so thank you, Terry, for that. Just gonna share my screen back now. Please do get any questions in that you have. Would love to hear them and propose them to Terry. Please, if you have any questions, just send them through. If there's any questions in the room, please send them through.
Do you need me to do anything else here? Flipping Daniel, rather, you got it?
No, yeah, no, nothing else. Just waiting for some questions to come through. If anyone does have any questions, please do.
No questions.
Please do let me know. There must be a few questions in the room. No? Okay, okay, here we go. Okay, so Michael asks, are we born to sell or born to serve?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think we're born to do either, frankly, Michael. I think that we're certainly not born to sell. I think earlier on what I was saying was that there's no such thing in my view as a born person. There's just people that are better at it. Some are better at it than others. Born to serve, I think no. I think service is a gift we give people, and if we're willing to do it and be, have that kind of mindset, I think that's absolutely perfect. The truth is that if you can be of service and be genuinely of service and not put people on the spot. I mean, what I've been trying to get across is that a lot of traditional selling is about persuasion, but it's also about kind of moving people into a corner, basically saying to people, we don't let them out. We have tricky ways of saying things. That reduces their freedom, and that, I don't believe that should be done. I think what we should do is be of service. One of the things we do though is we're not really being of service if we're not actually giving them all the details, information they need, and quite often we don't. A lot of us don't want to blow our own trumpet. We don't want to say how great we are and all that kind of thing. And we draw back from that. We're kind of reticent and we don't want to do that. But in doing that, sometimes we're not giving the people the whole story. So listen, I've trained up a lot of people and I've done lots of stuff, but I've made my mistakes. I've had terrible sales meetings. I've had courses that didn't go as well as I would like them to, not so many now, but years ago. But the point is that the intention was always to be of service, absolutely. Because I think, but what I'm trying to say, what I was saying earlier, the reason we have to have a sales focus, the reason we have to do that is we have to be comfortable that what we're doing is of benefit to them and benefit to us. So yeah, I don't think it's an and or. I think you can be. I don't think you can be born to sell, but you can sell. But you can definitely you can serve, but it has to be your choice.
Brilliant. I think we've got another question here now. We've got another question here, another couple of questions. So no, it's coming. They said, thanks, Damien. I'll wait on that. While I'm waiting on that, I'll ask a question. So is there any key questions that you've used that can be easily reformulated regardless of the products? Because you've worked with a lot of product selling. Is there any kind of key questions that you can use to kind of prompt people into that corner that you talked about?
Yeah, well, see, Daniel, you're missing the point. I don't want to prompt anyone in any corner, but I know what you mean. So when you're doing a fact find at the beginning, when you're asking a client questions, the important part, most people in sales conversation, most salespeople in sales conversations are either talking or waiting to talk. They don't do enough listening. So yeah, you're right. It's really important to do the list. The listing part is the biggest part. And there are certain things you need to know. So you think, like, one of the things I'd like to know is what their time frame is, but it's difficult to ask them that. So if someone's interested in a training program, I might want to say something like, once you've found something you're happy with, and obviously prices and things you're happy with, is this something you're hoping to do fairly soon, or is it going to be something for next year or the year after? And that's only so that I have an inclination of where they are in the conversation. Now, bear in mind, they'll put up a little smoke screen anyway. They'll always say stuff, well, actually, we're not thinking about it right away. It'll be like this and like this. But then that can come into the conversation later on, because that's a little bit of information. But, really the most important thing isn't about prompting them. As I said earlier, people do love talking about themselves. We all love talking about ourselves. The trouble is, salespeople like it so much they don't stop. One of the things I try to get people, there's loads of acronyms in selling, always be closing, ABC and all that. The only one I like is WAIT, wait, why am I talking? Now, if you can't figure out why you're talking, it's probably best to shut up and just listen to what people have to say. And I've met salespeople who say virtually nothing, but they have a gift for listening. Yeah, and when they say something, it's meaningful. It's not just jabber.
Yeah, I think people are really uncomfortable with silence.
Yes.
So is there any way that you can overcome that, or any way that you've overcome that in your experience? Those silent moments when you feel like you have to fill the void with something.
I never do. Well, I tell you the most important thing, again, I said earlier that the most important part of a sales meeting is how you end it. One of the most important things you can do with a client, if you're talking to a client that is going to take a series of meetings, and maybe they're going to need to report back. There are people who have to report back. They have to get feedback from the board of directors or whatever. If you're working business to business, that. It's not going to happen that day. The most powerful thing you can do in a sales meeting is end it. Mm. Okay? Because salespeople never do. Salespeople carry on the meeting. Wait, there's that moment in a meeting when it's kind of over. You've said everything you need to say. They've said everything they need to say. What I would say at that point is just to say to them, you know what? Unless you have any questions, I don't really think there's a lot more to be said about this for the time being. Would it be okay if we left it at that for today? Now, they're going to jump at that because, that's exactly what they were thinking. It was getting a bit embarrassing. How are they going to get rid of you, So now you've helped them, right? You've facilitated them, as I was saying earlier. But then you have to finish it. You can't leave it like that. So they say, that'd be great. Thanks ever so much. It's been really interesting. That's absolutely fine. One thing I would ask, though, is that, if I'm going to leave all this with you, it would be really great for me to keep my diary up to date and get a little bit of feedback. Would it be okay if I gave you a call in a week or two? Maybe towards the end of the month, just to see, just so I can update my file. Would that be okay? And they will agree to that. Just understand that if you're able to do that one thing, you never have to follow up again, because you will put in your diary, you'll say something like, okay, well, I'll just make a note for, February the 7th or something. If you're not here, I'll leave a message, but I've got it in the diary now. That's so I don't forget it. Thanks ever so much, and leave. You can then forget about that. And then on February the 7th, when it pops up on your diary, it's no longer a follow-up. It's the fulfillment of an obligation. You said you would call them. It's in your diary. And then you call them. They may well have forgotten all about it, but it makes following up, it stops it being following up, and it makes it easy to do. And following up for most people it's like cold calling. It's just something they don't want to do and will never do.
Got a question about cold calling, actually.
Go ahead.
Just before I jump onto that one, John Taylor says, no question about it, this is a great technique and one that he advocates and uses. It's all about making people comfortable. So Ronit asks, how do you feel about cold calling as a lead generation tool? And is there an empowering approach in this scenario in terms of dealing with resistance?
Absolutely. First of all, I hate cold calling. So does everybody else. Everybody who's doing it and everybody's at the end of it hates it. So I don't, but the problem with cold calling is that it effectively, what you're doing is speaking to a stranger and asking them to give you something for nothing, right? So you have to have a call process. A call process is not cold calling. So a call process begins with you engage with someone. The first call I make is not I don't even care. I don't want to talk to anybody at that point. I just want to ask, you have a thing called the gatekeeper. You
Yeah.
talk about the gatekeeper. They're not gatekeepers. They're lovely people, right? I tell you what they are. They're kind of guides. They're like signposts. If you phone up an office and say to someone, okay, first of all, when you do it, I identify myself. I say, hi, I'm Terry Mullins from Reluctant Salesman, sales training firm based in Cornwall. And then what I do is I just say, look, I've got some information I need to send regarding whatever it is, like a sales training program for architects. I'm just wondering who's the best person to send that, to address that to, right? I do that. They will then give me the name of exactly the right person I need to be speaking to. Okay? Hope you're writing this down. And then, then I say, look, you know what? We normally email it. Is there an email that would reach them? No, I don't ask for their email. Is there an email that would reach them? And then they'll give me their email. And I've sat with cold calling people and they can't believe this, this happens, but it happens every time. So then I've got their email and I've got their name and I thank them. Then what I do is I have something to send them. So what I send them is something that's of benefit to them that I'm not selling. I call it the product, and it's part of my program. I show people how to create these. But effectively, I send it to them, and then they can choose to speak to me or not. Because then when I phone back and I mention my name, and I say, could I speak to John Smith? And they say, could I ask what it's concerning, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to say. I just say, yeah, it's about the conversation I had last week and the information I sent over. And then John chooses to speak to me or not. And when I speak to John, I've got one question. Hi, Mr. Smith. Thank you very much. Terry from the Reluctant Salesman thing. I sent over some information. I just wondered if you had a chance to look at it. And that's it. And then I just talk. I'm just in a conversation. I get more. I can talk to the average conversion rate on that. The average doing that and then get into with a product and everything. But the average from that to actually having a client, I get about 1 in 8.
Wow.
Across the board, doesn't matter what service or business. Cold callers, they talk to thousands of people, and I don't know how they do it, and God bless them for doing it, but I couldn't do it. So no, I don't speak to anyone who doesn't choose to speak to me. So in answer to the question, I hate cold calling. I won't do it. My clients certainly won't do it. I can't get a reluctant salesperson to cold call, but I get lots of people to do a call process that actually works. I mean, by the way, cold calling does work if you're willing to do it. It's like all those processes, everything I showed you, which is kind of difficult, but it doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for people who are not comfortable doing it.
Yeah. Ronnie agrees with that one. So just another one here from Damien. How can a salesperson juggle the ease that Terry speaks of and the sales target involved? I think it's a mental dilemma.
Okay, so yeah, do you know, thanks, Damien. That's a really interesting question. Sales targets are a lazy management tool, always have been. Basically, Damien, you hit target, what's going to happen is they're going to put the target up. You know that, don't you? That's what always happens. And it's not, the trouble is that's someone's game. That's their game. Now, I know if you're in a business structure, if you're kind of working for a company, they're looking for results. But what we need to do, how we need to do this is understand that getting those targets, getting those sales it's dependent on you talking to people. It's dependent on you having open and clear conversations. I don't know what it is you sell, Damien. I don't know how that quite works. But if it's all based around sales targets, that's a pressure on you. Do you know, I worked for a company once. I didn't work for them. I was coaching them, and it was actually British Gas. And they had a sales team, and they discovered that for some reason, if a salesperson hit target in week 3, their conversion rate went up in week 4. Why was that? Well, that was because week 4 was a lot easier for them because the pressure had been taken off. And that's what we have to understand. There is no answer to it. Creating ease is really about creating a structure that allows people to move forward, yourself and the client, to actually go to the next stage of the process. If you're trying to, what's the Americans say, get to third base and all that. If you're trying to do it in one meeting, it's crazy. You can't
So
do
much.
that. You cannot, if you are, I mean, certain salespeople have to, you know, people selling fitted kitchens or double glazing, they have to, because they have to close on the night, because that's where their money is. But if you can create a relationship and a sales process, and your employer can see that it's working and it functions. I mean, when I go into, sometimes when I work for a client, as a company, or, you know, got a large team, it's about changing the ethos of the company, getting them to understand. And unfortunately, traditional selling, well, not unfortunately for me, but traditional selling doesn't deliver in the way it used to. So the whole sales target thing is okay, and I understand it, but as I said, I think it's just the way management likes to make sure you're on your toes and keep you busy. And everybody is trying not to be the bottom of the heap. It's horrible, and I feel for anyone who's caught in that. But, you know, basically, I didn't work for company. I always worked for companies that had sales targets, but the trouble is, I just took no notice of them, and then I beat them, and I beat them because I was taking no notice of them. If you let this stuff get to you, it will just kill you. It freezes you, because it's part of the truck. You remember I said about the truck that you're dragging in? You suddenly think, I didn't get the last one. I've got to get this one. And clients see that. There's a thing called cultural micro-rhythms. I'd suggest you read a couple of books, actually. Read The Millionaire Messenger by Brendan Burchard. Wonderful book about how to sell the sort of things we sell, coaching and training, and how to earn a good living at it. And Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Blink has got a number of really good things in it about how people read people. And you need to get that people will read you. And if you're being insincere, or you're desperate or needy, they'll read it, and they'll read it as, they won't understand it, but they'll read it as something's wrong. And when they think something's wrong, they're like meerkats, they're gone, you know? So, yeah. So there is no solution to this problem except work for somebody else, really.
Two more questions, quick one, Terry. So first one's easy. When will your website be live? And it's live now, isn't it?
Yeah. My website's live now. You can go on that and see stuff. If anybody's interested in any of the programs there, just message me. In fact, please message me anyway. If you just want to have want to talk about anything, or you've got any points, let's have a chat. I'd be happy to do that. You don't have to buy anything, honest. In
the post email that I'm going to send out early next week, I'm going to put in Terry's contact details, so you can just I'll put in his email, so you can just send them an email.
Daniel, you can give them my phone number if you like as well. I don't mind.
Okay, perfect. Well, you get his phone number. I only got that a couple of weeks ago. Neoma, what percentage of our time in the week, this is from a sole trader, what percentage of our time in a week should we be spending on sales? If you could put that in a percentage, what percentage should they be spending on sales?
Sorry, what was that chap's name?
It's Neoma.
Neoma, that is maybe a lady. Okay,
yeah.
That is a fabulous question, and absolutely right. And it's difficult. And I've tried to quantify this a little bit, but if you look at the idea of a 40-hour week, right? So that's, I don't know if anybody how that works anymore. Do people still work for? I don't know. But let's say that's like 8 hours a day, right? I've honestly, if it's the most important thing you could be doing for your personal profitability, for the business profitability, for just earning a living, and if you focus on it and get proactive, here's the deal: you can actually charge more because you're choosing clients. You can be more selective, so you don't have to get so many. So that then frees up some of that fulfillment time. So you're doing less work for more money. That's the trick. I would suggest that you should be looking for about 8 hours a day. 8 hours a week, where you're spread across the week, but you need to have some sales time. And the way to do that is actually to diarise it. Put it in your diary and say, I'm just selling. I'm just going to be talking to people, and I'm going to be actively doing that. I didn't get a chance to explain it, but a couple of quick things you could do. You can do direct contact, and I can help you with that. You can do networking, but it has to be positive networking. Networking meetings where you just swap cards and wish everybody well, that's just Christmas. You don't need that. You need to have an intention and a process for dealing with networking meetings. And the other one is raising visibility. Doing this today gets me seen. and you guys get to hear about me, and I've been doing this loads of stuff. So you get to talk to a group of people, and if your networking groups will always looking for speakers, and you guys have specialist skills, be the speaker and raise your visibility, because that's a good way to get leads. But you have to have a process in place for kind of culling those leads to make the thing work. Not culling, that's the wrong word, but anyway, yeah, you need to have a way of taking those leads and making something from them. But yeah, but there's loads of stuff.
Brilliant, brilliant. Damien says he loves the term lazy management tool.
Well, it is, Damien, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I really
it is. Because people, you know, they can just, and you know, the target's, you know, five grand a week, 10 grand a month, whatever. Oh, I don't know. But then the minute you get it, they just put it up, and without anything. That's not management. It's a bit like when people do banks like you to do a forecast, don't they? It's just made up stuff. It's just the best stuff. They invent a number and they will keep pushing that number up, and all it does is it just is burden. You know, one of the parts of my program is I talk about responsibility, and responsibility is often perceived as either burden or blame. You know, if someone's just dumped something on you, or if you get it, and then when you don't hit target, you know, you're to blame because you were responsible. You have to, responsibility is a gift you give yourself, and it's actually, you have to take it on willingly. So these guys just saying, oh, you've got to get more sales, you've got to get more sales. Well, they can say it, but they're not out there doing it, right? So, and you know, well-being is really important, and so many salespeople crash and burn because they get squashed by the pressure of this. And you know, if the first thing you need to do is be clear that you're happy selling what you're selling with the company you're selling to, selling for, because otherwise it's just not worth the candle. Because this is a tough job in one sense. I mean, most people don't want to do it, and most people can't do it, but they can't do it really because they don't want to. It's actually simple, and that's why we need to. We've moved on, you know. It's 2020, for goodness sake. We can't still be scratching where it itches and, you know, was it selling the sizzle and not the sausage? I mean, come on, it's 2020. People get that. We can't be doing that anymore.
Thank you so much, Terry. That's it from us now, guys. Thank you so much for the questions. I mean, took a while to warm up, but we did get there. Some good questions asked, definitely. And thank you for the answers, Terry. Did you have any final things to say that you wanted to say?
No, I obviously thanks for those who participated and stayed with us to the bitter end as well. It's really great. Thanks for that. And yeah, by all means, get in touch, and I'd welcome your feedback.
Yeah, so those details will be in the email I'm going to send out next week, along with the slides and the link to the YouTube, so you can watch this video back over. Until next week, we will be back again next week on Thursday with another webinar. You will be getting some notification about that, I think tomorrow or Friday. So please do look out in your inbox for that. And when you do get the email next week, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep on top of all of the great content that we're doing on these webinars. Thank you again, Terry, and have a good afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are, guys. And yeah, stay safe.
Bye now.
Hey, Terry.
Oh, hiya, mate.
It's just us now. Everyone else filtered out now. Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Terry. Great content. Can you hear me?
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It there you are. It was a bit of a machine gun delivery at the end, but it was fun. Yeah, I'm just answering a couple of start my video. Did you ask me to start a video?
Yeah, I did.
What do I do? Just start it? Shall I do it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry,
Perfect.
that video. Yeah, just the
Yes.
video thing. Yeah, I'm actually just answering a couple
Yeah.
of private ones that came through, which was really nice.
What, people sent you some
Yeah,
private questions? They sent private
yeah.
questions to you? Oh, what was the
Well,
question?
one was from Marco. Well, actually, it wasn't so much a question as a statement. Terry, I'm a sales trainer. Love your approach, which was very nice. So I'm just thanking him for that.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, so people can send you direct questions as well. I was not aware
Yeah,
of that.
there you are. So you've learned something today then.
Yes.
Then I've got another one from Michael Cochran to me. So refreshing to hear your presentation. Selling should be simple, but make it complicated. Great salesmen are great questions and actively listen to their
Yeah.
prospects. So it's good.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, you got a load of good remarks on this side as well. A load that got sent directly to me. So yeah, like I said, great presentation, great content. Looking forward to getting it out there on YouTube. And yeah, I'm sure people are gonna watch it and get a lot of value from it as well, from YouTube too. So I just want to say thank you. And as well, could you please send, can you send over your address? Because we want to send
I
you
think I've
something
already
just to say
done
thank
that.
you.
I think Kirsty asked me
You
for that a
sent me
week or
that,
so
man.
ago, but yeah, by all means. What I was going to
Okay.
say, I got a thing, I think, for Kirsty about a follow-up meeting. Or is that this?
Yeah, no, that's because everyone left. I just did this now.
Okay, yeah,
So
cool,
this is
cool.
fine. Yeah, so that's
Now,
fine.
what I'm going to do
Yeah.
then, I'll just answer these couple of questions, and then yeah, listen, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And if you guys want to do anything else at any point, let me know. Or if you want me to set something up, maybe I don't know if maybe I could do some sort of program for some of the coaches to get them some training at a better rate or something through CPD. I don't know. Maybe that'd be something I could look at.
What do you mean?
Well,
Because I'm currently, because I'm like head of membership. So what I'm trying to do is put together some tools that are valuable to members that they can use to leverage and kind of get more value from their CPD membership.
absolutely.
So I'm looking to work with a couple of our members on creating some just like introductory tools from yourselves that can be used in two ways. So obviously it's going to add immediate value to them, but then also it's going to be like a lead generation tool for yourselves potentially as well.
Well, the thing is that in fairness, I've got so much going on at the moment that I can't. Don't want to sound mercenary, but I do so much stuff, talks and stuff for nothing. Really, what I need to do is put some programs together. What I was thinking was if CPD people wanted to go to guys like the coaches and whatever I could actually create a program for them, a small one, and then roll it out maybe to them at a kind of reduced rate or in some way like that. I could do that. I'm more than happy to do talks and things like this, but whole programs, it's a bit too much work to do for nothing, if I'm honest, Daniel.
No, 100%. I fully understand what you mean. I don't know how in depth you would go with a program, but I wouldn't. How I'm thinking about being anything like that's crazy in depth. It would just be like this, basically what you've done today.
Sure.
But just recorded and packaged up with maybe a few more implementable steps. That's all.
Yeah, I get it, but I'm kind of, the only thing is to say, if I'm being perfectly frank, it's like today there's nothing much they can do with what I've given them. I've given them bits and pieces, and I understand that, but it's if I give away too much content, then I'm giving them stuff that I'm charging someone else for, and it's kind of it's not authentic in that. But look, let's just look at it this way. I'm more than happy to do something like this again, or do a little skills session. But it's the thing is with my stuff, it's not like learned. The the processes and stuff I do, they're really just applied. I've got this thing called the 4 keys. And when I do the 4 keys, I just say to people, just do that. And the rest of it will take care of itself. And that kind of works. So, and that's really the crux of the thing. This bit, the first principles, is how I introduce people into the conceptual view of this, my conceptual view of selling.
Yeah.
But going on from that, it becomes quite, you know, they actually have to do stuff. And the stuff I give them to do is valuable. So if I can't just give it away.
No, I understand. I get that. That's fine too. But I mean, we're gonna stay in contact. And we're gonna do some more stuff together anyway. So
yeah, I love this. I was. How many did we get in the end?
I think overall, about 50 odd came in and out. Overall, so 50 odd. I think at the highest point in the room at one time was about 40. But in terms of like people that was coming in and out, it's probably going to be like 50 something. Yeah. Well,
people are squeezing it in around their lunch and
exactly.
Yeah, but it was good. That was great. Okay, well, I'll just respond to these guys and thank you for putting it all together, mate. I appreciate it.
No worries, Terry. It's a pleasure. Just send over your the links.
My which?
The links and the number that you want me to share.
Oh, okay, cool. Brilliant.
Yeah, and then I'll share that next week.
Fantastic. Thank you, and thanks for being so professional and making it so easy.
No worries, it's a pleasure. It comes naturally.
Modest as well. Love it, mate. Absolutely love it. Okay.
Fantastic.
God bless.
Have a great afternoon. Speak soon.
And you. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.